Welcome back to What the Flick. I'm Matt, that's Christy, that's Alonso. It's that time of the week. There's new movies available on home video, either streaming or physical media that you can own. And assuming you still have machines that work.
Keep forever.
Right.
I rented a video last week. I rented Suspiria from Cinephile.
Oh yeah?
I sent, Chris physically went out and he crossed the 405 and he went to Cinephile and he got me a physical DVD that I then popped into my Xbox.
Not on Betamax?
It was not on beta and it was not streaming.
Okay.
So
a lot of new stuff available. Christy, you want to give us your
I'll go first, yes. So this came out on Netflix on Friday. I'll close this up. Nothing in there is very interesting. On Friday last week on Netflix, a movie called Kodachrome came out, and it's based on a New York Times story about the last lab in the country that was developing Kodachrome and the mecca that it became for photography aficionados. But it's a fictional story, and on paper it sounds like a very, very cliched kind of indie road trip, road to redemption kind of story that you've seen a million times before. Jason Sudeikis stars as a record executive who's sort of at a crossroads in his career and his life, and he has to reunite with his father from whom he's estranged, played by Ed Harris, who is this cantankerous and grizzled but legendary photographer, and they have to go out to the Kodachrome lab before it closes on the last day. Along for the ride is Elizabeth Olsen, who we'll be talking about later on today in a multitude of contexts. She is Ed Harris's nurse because Ed Harris's character is dying. So you have all the cliches all in one place. Father-son reconciliation, road trip on two-lane back roads in a convertible, manic pixie dream girl who says all the right things. But every single time you think that a person's who you think they're going to be or the trip's going to go the way you think it's going to go, there are surprises. It is so well acted. It's a great cast. So I would say this sounds like a total cliche, but give it a shot. It's on Netflix and it has great use of music. Not necessarily the songs you would expect from a feel-good road trip to redemption movie, but
Does it have Paul Simon's Kodachrome?
It does not. It does not, which I was impressed by. They show some actual restraint. They don't use that. They reference it in the movie, but they don't actually play the song.
Which means they couldn't afford it.
Maybe. They're spending too much money on Ed Harris. But yeah, he's really good in this. So
All right. Alonso, what's your pick for the week?
Well, Matt took mine. So I'm going to talk about a vintage favorite that is coming on Blu-ray for the first time. The 1981 film Liquid Sky, 1982, sorry, which was one of my sort of first cult films that I remember seeing a lot when I was in college. It's basically set in kind of pre-Disney New York, and there are aliens who arrive, and they are zapping people whose brain produces a chemical that happens when they either shoot heroin or have an orgasm. So you can imagine. And Anne Carlisle plays a female role and a male role, and she is androgynous to pull it off, enough to pull it off. And you know, it's not like the greatest movie ever, but as an example of early 80s, you know, young Sundance era indie films go, it's actually pretty entertaining and it's very stylish and there's a lot of fun ideas and it has a sense of place of a New York City that just doesn't exist anymore, of a kind of the kind of grungy, arty. If you read the style section of the New York Times this weekend with their like look back at New York between 1981 and 1985, this very much captures that vibe. And so it's never been on Blu-ray before. There's like 2.5 hours of extras. There's commentaries and documentaries and behind the scenes stuff and all kinds of stuff. So if you are a fan of you know, early 80s New York and the kind of punk new wave era, this is a cool little snapshot of that. Liquid Sky, out from Vinegar Syndrome.
I just watched After Hours recently, and yeah, again, a good little snapshot of like grungy, pre-Giuliani New York, but it was still like a dangerous place.
Seedy.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Not anymore. You know what is not a dangerous place at all? London, as seen in Paddington 2. That's this week, right?
The best film of 2018 so far still.
Really?
Yeah, that's
better than A Quiet Place.
Hell yeah. So Quiet Place.
So good.
All right, so Paddington 2 is available. If you missed it in theaters, absolutely watch it. It's super sweet. If you like the first one, you're gonna love this one too. Might actually be even a little better than the first one. You get to see how Paddington, in all of his earnestness and sweetness, changes those around him and makes everyone better. It makes the world a better place. It's a really kind of great film about kind of, let's hear it for kindness and be kind and everybody gets along better. And
it's a Brexit movie.
Maybe a little bit. All right, I'll buy that. Same cast as before, Sally Hawkins and Hugh Bonneville as the Browns that have taken young Paddington in. Hugh Grant comes in as kind of the villain in this. He is so much fun in this movie. This is probably the best I've seen Hugh Grant do in anything in a long time. He's this kind of used to be really great actor, now only really doing dog food commercials, there's a MacGuffin about a treasure that he wants to find, and you get to see him do a bunch of different roles and really play up the idea of somebody who was famous, and I just love this movie. Jim Broadbent's great in this again. Brendan Gleeson. So much fun in this as the super angry, mean chef in the prison where Paddington named
Knuckles
McGee.
Yes.
McGinty, yes.
Yes,
Still
Knuckles
a great
McGinty.
name,
Yeah, this is a terrific film. It's very sweet. Even if you have already seen it once, it's worth seeing again. We had to tell Alonso to go back and stay through the credits.
Because I didn't stay through the credits.
Because the credits
it was worth it.
Yes, the credits has this Busby Berkeley inspired musical number that is just amazing.
I almost watched it again on a plane yesterday, and I thought, do I want to weep in front of strangers?
Aww.
No, I do not.
But probably if they were watching something sad too, you could all commiserate. No.
Maybe.
Yeah, Hugh Grant in this is so great, playing somebody who was pompous and high-flying, who has since fallen and has to rehabilitate himself. Reminded me a lot of Shia LaBeouf playing John McEnroe. And it's a stretch. I realize, go with me on this here. The idea of somebody playing somebody that's kind of a version of themselves, or at least the perceived public persona of themselves, and the knowing kind of toying with your identity and your celebrity, and Hugh Grant's having a good time in a kind of a knowing way, it feels like, and that's part of the fun.
I was actually thinking about Vincent Price in Theater of Blood, where he plays like an aging ham who gets to put on a lot of costumes and play a lot of different roles and play them all hammily, but in an entertaining way.
Yeah, and the details in this film are so great. I mean, I guess you can pick them up if you have a nice big screen at home to watch them, but like the pop-up book that Paddington walks through to tell his story of how his aunt fell in love with London, or the idea of London, and it's just, the details are so beautiful and so evocative, and hopefully you can catch all that on your screen at home.
I'm not being sarcastic. It is my favorite film of 2018
I don't think
to date.
you are. You're not the only person. I believe David Ehrlich is also beating the Paddington drum.
So if I see a better film this year, then 2018 will have been a really good year for movies.
I remember interviewing Bonneville around the first film, and we were doing at Rotten Tomatoes our 5 favorite film series, and the last film he picked was, he said, at the risk of, he says, I remember he specifically says, I realize this is nailing my flag to the mast, as it were, but I'm going to pick Paddington. And I thought, wow, okay, that's putting his money where his mouth is. All right, and then went and saw it, and I thought, you know what? That dude's right. This movie is terrific.
He's on brand.
He's on brand.
But it's true.
But it's a wonderful film, and I can't really fault him for that.
No matter how old you are, it's not necessarily just for kids.
Oh, hell
It's
yeah.
for everybody, every age.
Yeah.
Male,
This is a great
female,
movie.
whoever you are.
Okay, so those are your picks for this week. Paddington 2 and Kodachrome and
Liquid
Liquid
Sky.
Sky.